The English Defence League, Tommy Robinson created that, and within, I think it was a month, changed it to the English and Jewish Defence League. The vast majority of the Zionists aren't Jews, they're Christian. A lot of people that use the label aren't necessarily Muslims. Tate is an example of this. A Muslim pimp. There is this situation that I think Muslims find themselves in, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but this is just something that I've noticed from inquiring of Muslims. This has been confirmed. In your faith, it seems to me that one declares themselves to be a Muslim and says the Shahada, then they are accepted as a Muslim. And of course, none of us are perfect. No human being is perfect. So I understand that your belief is that essentially nobody knows a person's heart other than God, or you would say Allah. And therefore, you have to take someone at their word. It's not for you to question their proclamation of faith. And therefore, I suppose you have people that are doing deeds under the umbrella of your faith, claiming to be a member of your community or a member of your faith and ideology, that you might inwardly, maybe you're not saying it because you're told that you're to kind of accept people's profession of faith and that's between them and God. To be honest, Tate is an example of this, in my opinion, who have made a declaration that they are a Muslim and therefore they are accepted as a Muslim. And therefore, if they do something publicly under that banner, the label is a Muslim did this, a Muslim groomer did that, a Muslim terrorist did that, a Muslim pimp did that, whatever, right? But the difference that I have found with Christianity is that we are actually told to judge in righteous judgment. The Bible's often misquoted. It goes on to say, judge others by the same standard that you would uphold. Forgive me, like I don't want to sound like I'm being patronizing. I speak to people sometimes and they say, oh, Jada, you know, don't take that guy as a Muslim. You know, he said a lot of stuff that would be considered heresy or worse, or shirk, I guess you would say. Or for Christians, sometimes we are called judgmental because we say, well, that person isn't a Christian. And we say it with a confidence, but that's because there are certain values that have to be upheld and certain acts that have to be displayed. And if we don't see that, like regenerate new heart that's been given to someone once they've received the Holy Spirit, we're calling you out on this. You're not a Christian.
In terms of Andrew Tate, you're right. When someone takes a Shahada, they are a Muslim. We consider them a brother and a sister, and their relationship in terms of faith is between them and God. But it's all about intention with Islam, right? We get told you get rewarded with the intention to pray as well as praying. But with people like the Tate brothers, with people like Andrew Tate, don't think that he gets off lightly. You know, Muslims rip him a lot. And it's it's not to be disrespectful. You have to call each other out on these things. I get called out.
Brotherly love.
You have to, because sometimes people don't know certain things. People that are new Muslims might not know certain things. He is a relatively new Muslim. He's a revert, so there might be things that he doesn't know. And yes, it does hurt you when people do things publicly, but again, it's between them and God. But I think there are good and bad people in every race and religious background. From what I find is that people who are involved in criminal activity or degeneracy, they're not practicing their religion properly, or not at all in some cases, and that goes for grooming gangs, you know, people that are involved in those types of horrible crimes. They're not close to God and they're not practicing Islam. And for me, I don't see it as a race and religion thing. I think creeps come from all backgrounds and they are in need of religious guidance. It is a scary time. And I'm sure, you know, one of the main voices that are condoning and justifying, as well as sort of covering up the Zionist war crimes, is Tommy Robinson, who I'm sure you know very well. I know in your wilder days of activism that you had attended EDL rallies. I think that he's morphed British nationalism into being Israel first and UK second. You know, he's basically going with whoever's got the money, and people are following him thinking that he actually gives a toss about them, which is really sad. What do you think about Tommy Robinson? How do you feel about him mixing nationalism with Zionism?
Yeah, so Tommy Robinson is a character. Stephen Yaxley Lennon has been used and was used concurrently with Nigel Farage to destroy the British National Party. Now, I wasn't involved in the British National Party. The British National Party did rise to prominence, became a household name. The establishment, which is basically a Zionist branch of the whole globalist agenda, the establishment created these two characters, Tommy Robinson, Nigel Farage. And when I say created, like people often think, oh gosh, you know, this is a conspiracy nutter. Tommy Robinson didn't go to MI5 and get issued with his, here's your long coat and here's your fake moustache and now your name's Tommy Robinson and you've got to do this. It's not like that. Tommy Robinson was used by the establishment, just the same way that Nigel Farage was, to destroy the BNP, which was pushing ethnic nationalism. And that worked very successfully. UKIP basically dealt with the political side, which is the BNP. And then the EDL was to mop up all of the people that weren't particularly political, but they were involved in activism. And it worked perfectly. And so the English Defence League, Tommy Robinson created that, and within, I think it was a month, changed it to the English and Jewish Defence League. And this is open to public inspection if you go onto Companies House. This was an actual agenda. Like, this didn't happen by accident. Tommy Robinson himself is not that powerful that he could bastardize the entire British right wing, which formerly, if you go back to like National Front days, wasn't Zionist. It's remarkable to see in the last 15 years the complete bastardization of the British right wing, which is almost entirely now that mainstream element, which is Tommy Robinson, is Israel first. For me, it's like, okay, I'm looking at this and saying, well, this is treasonous, right? This is obvious treachery. It's a very sophisticated and very well-funded agenda that has hijacked the right wing and totally turned it in that direction. The vast majority of the Zionists aren't Jews, they're Christians. They call themselves Christians. They're the ones that are pushing this agenda. And of course, that isn't what's spurring on Tommy Robinson. He's not pretending to be a man of God. That really would be pushing things a bit too far. And again, it goes back to what we were saying right at the beginning. Western Europeans maybe would have a tendency to look at anyone who's calling themselves a Muslim and say, oh, well, that's a Muslim whatever, a Muslim groomer, Muslim terrorist. And as you said, a lot of people that use the label aren't necessarily Muslims, right? They're not following God in their heart. Well, it's the same with this. The people that are cheerleading for this agenda and this genocide, they can't be Christian. It goes against all of our values. And what I would hope is that people watching this, who I expect are probably predominantly Muslim audience, will also understand that the right wing, the genuine right wing, is actually probably quite small, because it's not the grift right. Tommy Robinson, Lawrence Fox, Britain First, you know, the people that are just shilling, lining their own pockets. They're pushing an agenda for a shekel. I do not support genocide. I never thought I'd have to say those words, but I do not support the ethnic cleansing of people in their homeland, their historical, ancient, biblical homeland. I didn't realize they had so much hate in their hearts. Just because these people are brown, just because these people are predominantly Muslim, but some of them are Christian. Some of the most ancient Christian sites have now been demolished. But just because these people are different, you want to see them wiped out so that you can occupy their lands. They need to be held accountable. And I've called out everybody you can imagine from my side of the fence and some on your side of the fence, because again, I don't want to keep coming back to him, but I remember seeing the reaction from some people that I was quite disappointed in. And I know that people like DJ Khaled's getting a bad rap, but, you know, rightly so. And even Andrew Tate in the early days, I remember there was some video of him in his kind of his Versace dressing gown. This was a couple of days after the conflict, and I remember looking, thinking, I'm screaming about this, and there are other people that are like, I won't say anything. And a lot of that is because there's money in supporting the other side, right? There's no money in sticking up for what's right and doing God's work. There's money in waving that little blue and white flag and cheering on the mass murder of innocent people.
Dude, I think that is something that we can definitely agree on.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu